It is a hot one today, but we are going to talk about those September chores that you have to do. And I'm actually recording this on probably one of the hottest days in August, about a week before September. And the only reason I'm in here, because it's kind of warm already and it's like the morning, it's about 9 o'clock, is because I do have some seeds started over here. So I do have some kale, and I've got some kohlrabi and cabbages and things like that started for my fall and winter gardening. So I'm pretty excited about that. So we're going to go on out in the garden and we're going to talk about a few things that we can do in September. It's really kind of hard to think about fall and winter gardening right now because I kind of feel like I'm in a jungle when I come out here. I was looking at some pictures and some videos of earlier this year, and nothing was up in the beds yet, and it looked really barren. And now I can't hardly see through my garden because there is so much. I'm Chrissy from Up the Windy Lane, and today we're going to talk about those garden chores that we probably need to do in September and to get prepared for the fall and winter. All right, let's find some shade underneath these Tromboncini squashes. They're huge. I have pulled some off and I've actually sliced them up and freeze dried one to make some powder, but that's a completely different video. So September marks the onset of fall, which is, okay, it's pretty exciting. Miss Mavis has come to help me here, which is pretty exciting. I do not have a frost date in September, so we live in 6B, so I'm gonna say we're kind of like halfway-ish. We get some really weird weather. Like right now, it is so humid, and it is, the heat index will be like 110, 111 today, so it's gonna get pretty toasty here. Next week, it's gonna be like the high in the 80s. A couple of weeks ago, we had like a ton of rain and cool temperatures like fall. It's just, you just never know here where we live. So some of you that live in northern regions are probably going to have frosts this month, or well, September, the month that we're talking about. Some of you that live southern or further south than I do, you may just have kind of the same weather all year round. It may not be a very significant change. The frost date is really going to depend on what we can do, what we can get done, and such. So there are still things that we can harvest this month, but we're going to focus more on cleaning up, getting stuff ready for the fall and winter garden, if that's what you're doing. So there's still going to be lots to do. You are definitely not going to be done with the garden in September, unless I guess you choose to be. But we still have things ripening up. We can still cover stuff and get those things harvested. So it's definitely not the end yet. There are actually quite a few things that we can still harvest in September. I don't think it's going to be cool here. It's probably as we go into it. It may start out cool, but I'm thinking we're probably going to get another hot spell or so. So with September coming on, we actually can harvest a lot of fruits and things. So some of you might have fruits that are fall fruits that push further in the fall. And mine are not. All my blackberries are done. My strawberries are non-existent. Hopefully I have those next year. My apples just they don't bloom. My peaches didn't really do anything this year. And my blueberries, my pink lemonade blueberries are done. So I do not have any of those fruits that push into the fall. My fig trees are too small. They did come back. I thought they had died because we got a really cold snap earlier this year. So those are coming back really well. So hopefully I get figs on those maybe next year or the year after. So we'll wait and see about that. We do have lots of vegetables though that we can still be harvesting if you had planted these. So like green beans, I just harvested some green beans. My onions are not done, so I'm gonna lift some of those. I have harvested some cabbages. I've gotten my carrots out. I have been harvesting some peppers. I did harvest beets, and I've got more of those planted. And winter squashes, some of my Tromboncini have turned, and I did pick those, and those are gonna be saved inside. My pumpkins are not making it. I actually had 2 pumpkins on one plant, and the chickens got and ate the whole thing. Yeah, so I got to figure out something to keep them out of my garden. Haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do with that yet, other than putting a fence up or keeping them somewhere. But My other plant that looked really good looks horrible today, so that's not good. So I don't think pumpkins are gonna be in my harvest list this year. You could still be harvesting peas, winter radishes. I pulled mine and saved the seeds, so I'm gonna be planting more of those. I already pulled my potatoes. I did harvest some lettuce. I didn't plant any cauliflower. I'd really like to. I think I started some seeds to see if I could get it in or not. I have this little bug on me, little ant. Isn't that crazy how you can feel something that small? All right, he's gone. Kohlrabi. I love kohlrabi, and so I did harvest those, and I think I've got a few of those planted. Zucchini I've harvested. I have more of those going now, actually a second planting. I've not had luck with spinach, and sweet potatoes are going, so I'm going to be digging those up this month. I didn't do celery, which we don't really eat celery. It's really cool to grow though. I mean, like, that looks so cool. I don't know. I may have to try it next year. If you grow celery, let me know what you think. If it's like a hard crop to grow, we don't really eat it, so I've never really grown it, and so I don't know if that would even be beneficial because we don't eat it. I mean, one in our house might eat it with peanut butter on it, but that's about it. Tomatoes, we're still harvesting tomatoes. We're still harvesting lettuces. I'm still harvesting cucumbers. You can also, still be harvesting greens and radishes. Those are just some of the things that I have, but there's lots more. Now those fruits, you could do apples and strawberries and grapes and melons, pears, blackberries, cranberries. This is definitely a month for fruit. Blueberries, figs, you could be doing plums and raspberries, apricots, peaches. The list just kind of goes on depending on what you have and what zone you're in. So some things we could be planting or sowing in September: cabbages, leaf vegetables, lettuces, and onions. I would really like to plant some onions and overwinter them. So if I did a whole bed of onions, then I could mark that and I could have onions next year. So that might be something that you might want to think about. I am going to grow some, at least try to do some fall crops. That caterpillar tunnel's still not done. So I do want to try to get that done so that I can plant some more stuff out there and get that plastic on there. The strawberries that are still on my patio that have a ton of runners, I do definitely want to get those put somewhere, but I'm not going to put them in the garden. I haven't figured out where I'm going to put them yet. The raised bed might be an option. I'm just not sure yet. I'm going to do a little bit more research and see where I want them. They did really good there at one time, so I may put them and then put something around them. I'm not sure yet. Okay, so this is something, I do have a compost bin, but I think I'm going to change it to something else. So this book gave me a really good idea on a compost bin, and I think that would fit how I kind of do things. So I have a pallet compost bin. Basically, I just toss stuff in it. I don't water it. I don't do anything. I just toss stuff in it. So it really doesn't work like it's supposed to necessarily, or it takes it longer, I should say. So I did have compost out of it because I filled some of the raised beds that I put in this year with that compost. So it did make compost. It did take it a while. But this is what I think I'm going to move to. What a good idea. So this is basically similar. Well, it's actually not similar. It's exactly like my raised beds. So my raised beds are made just like that, except they are, well, not just loose like that. But if I made like a 3x3 and just made them, then you actually fill that up, and to turn it, you just take one off and you move it. This would kind of be my style. It's not permanent. If I didn't want to do it anymore, I could use this for raised beds, and I could actually, this would be benefiting the soil wherever I'm putting the compost, so I could do it where I'm going to plant and just move it. You know what I'm saying? Like over the fall and winter or whatever it might be. I've got like stuff poking me in the arm, and I think I'm going to try these. These are going to be super simple to make because I actually make my raised beds like this. So I think this is going to be something that I give a try. If I do, I'm definitely going to share it with you and show you how easy they are to make. All right, so we definitely have some jobs for September. Obviously, August is all about harvesting. September is going to be, like I said, mentioned earlier, more about neatening and composting, more about cleaning up the garden so that we don't have a mess come spring. I have had a mess come spring before, and I did not do that last year. I cleaned everything up and made sure because I do not usually grow through fall and winter. I usually grow kind of late and kind of like, you know, past frost here, which is about mid-October. But through the winter, I don't really grow anything. That I hope to change that this year. But I have a leaf mulcher, so I mulch all the leaves and I cover my beds with leaves. Now I have more beds this year because I put in those extra beds, so that's going to be interesting. So I got to figure out, I'm going to be mulching a lot of leaves. All right, so some of those tasks, some of those chores for September would be to turn your compost heap. I don't turn mine. Mine actually, I'm looking at it right now. You see that right back there? Let's see if I can show you. Right there. That is my compost. That has morning glories growing in it. Yeah, so I planted morning glories there last year. Probably shouldn't have done that because they're growing really well over by the compost. All right, let's get back to the chores. Turn your compost heap. I probably won't be doing that, but if you have one, you can turn it. You can harvest any of your remaining onions. You can pick all your ripe tomatoes before the end of the month, or before your first frost date. Now, we had a ton of rain, and now we're kind of in a dry spell, so I am still watering because it is really hot. As it cools off, it's going to be only watering in those dry spells, because as fall and winter comes in, that water table changes, it moves up, and your plants may not need as much water, and they don't need to be waterlogged because of it cooling down, and you don't want the roots to rot and so forth. This would be a time if you're neatening up your garden. You could be sowing green manures. You could be cutting down your asparagus. That's what I'm gonna be doing for sure. So that asparagus over there, if you can see, it drives me crazy. I know I probably mention it every time I do a garden tour that has got to move out of the garden. I have got to move it somewhere because it ferns out and gets so big and in my way. And now we've got tomatoes growing up in it and it's just a mess. And I could use that bed for something else. So I really need to figure out where I'm gonna move it and see if this fall would be the best time or when, but it's definitely getting cut down at the end of the month. This would also be a time to hill up or stake your Brussels sprouts. I do not have any of those. I haven't had luck with those. I usually have bugs and worms on them and I haven't got the hang of those yet. I would really like to grow them though, because we do use them occasionally. I probably wouldn't need to grow a lot of them, but we do use them. So, and it might be something that we use more of because I think they're super cute. They look like tiny little cabbages. They're just adorable. All right, so this next one I won't have to worry about because it says to ripen pumpkins or winter squashes. I don't have to ripen the pumpkins. Okay, so I shouldn't say that. I don't have to ripen the pumpkins, but I do have to ripen the winter squash. So some of these I'm actually picking. These are the tromacini. I don't know if that's how you say it or not, but they get really long, and then at the end, this is where the seeds are. So I do have some that had turned like an orangish color, but you can supposedly, once the bloom comes off of these like these did, you can pick them and you can eat them like kind of like zucchini or like a summer squash, or you can leave them on the vine, let them get kind of a yellow orange color, and they will become a winter squash. So I do have some that about got like 4 or 5 in the house that are kind of orange. I picked 2 this morning to take in and slice up. I took one in yesterday or the day before and sliced up and freeze dried it and made powder, because we're going to try some squash powder. I'm gonna let you know how that works out. But this is just a really cool plant, has huge leaves, and I kind of really tried to pick off a couple of these because the plant is really putting a lot of energy into these. So I picked 2 off, so that's 3 total, hoping it will put maybe some more on. I did grow these as well for the chickens, which they do like, because in my garden video I showed you they had already found one of the big ones back here that wasn't hanging, so they do like them. All right, if you have celery, this would be the month to feed and trim your celery. I do not, so I just think that would be kind of cool to have though. Mavis is kind of hanging out still. I'm not sure what she's chewing on. Chewing on like leaves and stuff that I've picked off. All right, so you can also be harvesting those apples and pears like we talked about, or harvesting your corn maybe. Our corn the raccoons and deer got into our corn, so it got mowed down. You could be lifting crops like your potatoes. You could be pruning things like blackberry vines, which I need to do. I may try to weed that out and just prune them. I've never really pruned them before. They usually just come up in their big old bush, but I probably should do that. This is also a great time to save those seeds. So if you've never saved seeds before, some of these plants, it is so easy. You find a good ripe tomato, save those seeds, or a good ripe cucumber, save those seeds. I have saved quite a few seeds this year. I've gotten some greens, I've gotten some radishes, so we're going to save all those and use those. I did check and make sure they're going to germinate good, and they usually do really well, and they're acclimated to your climate and where you're growing, so in my opinion, they do really well. I saved all my seeds for my marigolds this year. They're huge. They're so big. They've like taken over the beds, and I'm gonna have to be mindful of that next year and maybe not plant so many. A brief tip on seed saving: if you did buy hybrid varieties, you probably won't be able to save the seeds, especially if they're an F1, because of the hybrid. There's no guarantee of what you're going to get from that seed. So they usually cross plants and to get the best of certain plants. And so those seeds produce what they want it to, but the seeds of the actual fruit may not produce what you're thinking. So in September, we do still have pests. We do still have diseases, unfortunately. So you do want to keep an eye out on things. The squash bugs and the vine borers are still out, unfortunately, because they killed pretty sure one of my pumpkin plants is not doing so well, but the rest of it is, because it's on the ground. So we're gonna just see how it works. I don't know, we'll see, because if it's a vine borer, which I believe is what the issue is, there's not really a whole lot I can do about that right now. But there could be carrot flies, powdery mildew. You need to check your tomatoes for signs of blight, especially if you've had a lot of rain or you're having really hot weather. Cabbage flies, caterpillars on stuff. You might have slugs and snails. There's just all kinds of pests that can be in the garden. Now on your fruit, you're gonna have to look for disease as well and either prune or pick that out. But that's about it for September. So you're gonna be harvesting the rest of your stuff. You're going to be cleaning up things. You might be getting stuff ready for another succession. You might be getting ready for winter. You might be cleaning up beds and planting some onions for next year. There are all kinds of things that we can be doing. So I encourage you to push further into it. Get some winter gardening done. Plant some of those fall things. I'm actually really excited this year because I am really going to try to push, and I am really going to try to plant some things and grow some things over the winter. Maybe not as much in the garden right here. I keep seeing like tomatoes they're like that red. It's like I see it, and I missed them this morning. I'm definitely going to try to do that. I'm going to try to get some of those things planted. I don't know if it's going to be in here. I can always, with these hoops, I can always put a cloth fabric or frost fabric over the top of them, but I really want to get in that caterpillar tunnel. I really want to get something in there. I think today I'm going to look up fabric to go down. I'm going to get that purchased, and so that I can do that and not have to worry about weeding it. But of course I do have things planted out there, so I'm gonna have to worry about that. So we're gonna see how those are going, and I hope you enjoyed this. I'm really surprised I've made it this far through this book and working into September. So I hope you are doing well in your garden. Let me know if you have any tips or tricks for September. If you've got anything that you love growing in the fall and the winter, be sure to leave it below and share that. Be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to be lovely lights today.